Only adults?
No.
You said adults.
I said adults because I used the word every. Every adult. Kids versus
Their boundaries.
kids, yeah, there are definitely boundaries, but there's kid boundaries versus teenage boundaries versus adult children boundaries. That's what we talked about. For example, I'll give you a perfect case. Kids have the boundaries that children have the boundaries that their parents allow them to have. You know, we'll talk about how boundaries are formed a little while later. They start being formed from infancy, but parents still have a say-so on what kind of boundaries a kid is going to have. I'll give you a prime example. I have found out that and it was the weirdest thing in the world for me to hear about. There are some kids who got to decide what they were and were not going to eat growing up.
Oh, no. Oh, yeah.
Man.
They had choices about I don't want to eat this. And the mom said, okay, well, I'm not going to, the kid doesn't like it. As opposed to, you going to eat what I give you.
Where else is Bill going to eat Bill?
If it's on your plate, you better eat it.
Where are you going to start?
So that's a boundary. Does the kid get to tell you what they're going to eat? Or do you tell the kid what they're going to eat? And there's parenting philosophies that swing both ways, and I'm not going to knock one or the other. Just because something's completely different than the way you got raised doesn't mean that you should knock it. But that is a kid boundary. Maybe a parent allows their kid to have that boundary, maybe a parent doesn't. As you transition from childhood to adolescence, a parent's job is to figure out where your level of maturation is and whether or not you can handle the responsibility of those boundaries. Whether or not those boundaries are going to allow you to be a constructive member of society or whether or not they're going to land you in prison. How late a kid is allowed to be out at night is not something that a kid has, or a teenager or an early teenager or a mid-level teenager necessarily is going to have the maturity to be able to determine, because they're less aware of the dangers that are out there. They don't know how to navigate the dangers that are out there. And if something happens, you're the one who's going to be getting a phone call as a parent to either come get your kid out the jail, come get your kid from the hospital, or come pick your kid up on the street corner because they had to run somewhere and get away safe.
Or better yet, that your kids at the morgue.
Right.
Because of the choice they made.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Are you talking about boundaries within your family, like with your parents? Or are you talking about boundaries with other kids your age?
I mean, I guess both. He just said boundaries with adults, so I'm like, so kids don't have boundaries.
Okay,
No,
okay.
kids do have boundaries,
Yeah.
but the responsibility for establishing and maintaining them is a cooperative effort between the parents and the kids. So if a kid has fuzzy boundaries, there are times where a parent is supposed to step in and reassure those boundaries. Bullying.
Yeah, if the
As an
parents
example.
aware of it.
Right. There is, when I grew up, we didn't have all this anti-bullying stuff. Okay, that bullying was a part and a functional part of growing up. And yes, I did say that, and yes, it's going on the internet. It was a functional part of growing up. But my parents' rule was always, if somebody is picking on you, you ignore them. If they attack you, you get them off of you. If you continue to have a problem, you let me know. Establishes some responsibility for me, but if my child capabilities can't establish this boundary of getting this kid to keep his hand off of me, then they'll get involved.
Yeah.
Because ultimately they're responsible for my safety. I'm learning how to become responsible for my safety. So that's why I didn't say and didn't include kids in there, because there's a cooperative effort between parents and the child. They're supposed to work together to establish and defend their boundaries. Whereas adults, part of being an adult is expected that you are able to establish and defend your boundaries. That's why I make the difference.
What if their parents don't care?
Do they have
It
that?
doesn't, no.
If the parents don't care, well then hopefully there's an adult that does.
What is wrong with them?
Somebody you can talk
Parents have boundary issues too.
Yeah.
Parents have boundary issues,
Supposed to.
and we'll get there. Some of it comes